So a member of the Episcopalian Facebook group, I believe he is a bishop in another location, responded to Tiny Hand's lambasting of Bishop Buddy's address to him. And this is the best I've seen so far, and it's kind of long, and I'll read it as fast as I can, but I promise you it's worth it if you'll stay. He's got it listed by number, broken down very organized. Much like those who do not want you to be president, you do not get to decide whether a bishop's office is legitimate. She was chosen by the people of her diocese to be their bishop. Then she was granted consent to be a bishop by other bishops and standing committees of our church diocese. Beginning by calling her a so-called bishop is an obvious low blow to discredit her as a person rather than what she said that you disagree with. The Episcopal Church was legitimate enough to hold you your third wedding, the funeral of Melania's mother, and the baptism of your son Baron. Baron also attended Episcopal day school. Now you have an issue with how we do things when it doesn't go your way. 2. You didn't have an issue with politics being brought into church by the ministers who spoke at your inauguration, or by yourself, for that matter. They were blatantly partisan, crediting God for your political success, Mr. President. The last 4 years, there were times I'm sure you thought it was pretty dark, but look what God has done, Graham said. She wasn't nasty in tone, plain and simple. I can't remember ever hearing a homily given in such a gracious manner and calm tone. If you disagree, listen to her speak. You may disagree with what she said, but her tone was in no way nasty. Additionally, insulting her intelligence rather than quoting what you disagree with is a very typical narcissistic play. The vast majority of people who have committed crimes in the United States are U.S. citizens. Defending yourself about being asked to have mercy on immigrants by saying a large number of illegal migrants came into our country and unalive people is a gross misrepresentation and does not make sense. By that logic, we should be locking up or deporting all Americans because the majority of crimes were committed by citizens. We do not need to improve our immigration system, but Scripture commands us as Christians to have mercy. Mercy is the central tenet of our faith. Matthew 5:7 says, "Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy." Leviticus 19:33-34 says, "When a foreigner resides among you in your land, do not mistreat them. The foreigner residing among you must be treated as your native born. Love them as yourself, for you were a foreigner in Egypt. I am the Lord your God. If you take issue with this, take it up with God." Saying the service was boring and uninspiring is a move to discredit the event rather than what specifically was said. However, it's worth mentioning that the purpose of the service is not to be exciting. There are several purposes for our service, such as honoring God, bringing us closer to God, and being in community with one another. Being exciting is not one of them. As far as inspiring goes, that is in the eye of the beholder. You get as much out of it as you put into it. And the last one. The bishop does not owe you an apology. Our church does not owe you an apology. All that you were asked to do is what Scripture directly asks us to do. If you could quote one thing she asked of you that isn't asked of us in Scripture, we would apologize. Someone recently reminded me of something I often heard growing up in church. If you are offended by a minister's sermon or feel that it was a personal attack, look to see if you can find anything they said that was out of line with Scripture and the teachings of Jesus. If you can't, that feeling is what we call being convicted of your sin. The fact you are offended by what she said shows you know there is. To your supporters who also feel offended by it, same goes. It's nice to see people in her church standing up for her, and he broke that down perfectly. I hope he reads that. I doubt it, because reading is something he fucking hates doing, hence his inability to proofread.